Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with If I Could Choose Only One Work by composer X, it would have to be work B. Well, composer X is Rossini. And boy, is this a difficult choice. I haven't seen a lot of you mention Rossini yet, which kind of surprises me. We know, of course, that his most famous work is The Barber of Seville, but I'm not going there. I'm not, because I also want his most characteristic work, his most typical work, the one that sort of encompasses his genius, and he had a genius for comic opera, there's no question about it. But his non-comic operas are terribly underrated, and some of them are just brilliant. I mean, there's Tancredi and Maometto's Secundo and Ermione, which is just fantastic. I mean, they're really great works, and they're innovative, and they're just full of stunning music. I mean, Armida was a knockout when Renee Fleming did it at the Met. I mean, there's a lot of really, really cool stuff. And the only limitation on them is either the circumstances of their original production, which require somewhat eccentric casting, or they're just big and they're long and they're far more intricate than Rossini gets credit for being. There's probably no composer in the history of music who is underrated as Rossini is. I mean, really, because in terms of the estimation of what his achievement was, because not only did he basically invent 19th century Italian opera, the forms and the structures of it, but he was a classical composer. I mean, he was a composer of the classical period. All of his works, his major operas anyway, the operas, let's put it that way, were written within the life of Beethoven. I mean, between 1800 and the 1820s. And that was it. And then he retired. And then all of a sudden he came back as a romantic. I mean, in the 1850s and 60s, it's just astonishing. And he became one of the great composers for the keyboard. He wrote all those Sins of Old Age, those magnificent pieces. There's just a lot there. And he was also extremely funny. He had one of the best lines I have ever heard in my entire life, which was when Meyerbeer had died, and he was at the funeral, and some composer had written a funeral march in memory of Meyerbeer, and he said to Rossini, "So, what do you think of my funeral march in memory of Meyerbeer?" And Rossini said to him, "I think it would have been better if you had died and Meyerbeer had written your funeral march," which is just, oh my God, one of the great takedowns in all of music. But we have to choose work B, don't we? What is it going to be? Well, gonna be, get it? Work B? Okay, never mind. What will it be? It's going to be La Gazza Ladra, the Thieving Magpie. First of all, it's huge. It's enormous. I have the score over there. It's like several volumes in the complete critical edition. It's just tremendously big. But first of all, yeah, I'm really making a lot of sense, aren't I? Oh, you hear that noise? That noise is the soon-to-be completed new overflow room in the basement. The contractors are contracting, so I apologize if you hear crashing and bashing, but trust me, folks, it'll be worth it in the end. Anyway, La Gazza Ladra, the Thieving Magpie. First of all, it has comic elements, lots of them. So yes, there is that element of comedy that Rossini did so deftly and beautifully, but it's also semi-serious. It's actually based on a true story about a girl who was condemned to death for stealing a silver spoon. And it turns out, of course, the thieving magpie, the bird, was stealing the spoon. It all winds up happily in the end. The plot we don't need to get into. It has one of Rossini's absolute greatest overtures, right? Da-da-da-da-da-dum, ba-da-da-da-da-dum, ya-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da- which makes it utterly typical of the composer. And so it's just chock full of really, really fabulous music, piles of it, just heaps of it, unbelievable quantities of it. And it does give you both the comic and serious side of his art. And it was written around 1817. It's a mature work. It's just, no one else could have done it. It's so astonishingly great, and it never gets played anymore. It was quite popular in the 19th century. Rossini revised it up through the 1860s and wrote ornaments and things for some of the arias. So it was well known then, but now virtually nothing. But I would send this opera to the god Cancresans and say to him, "Look at this! Look at everything this guy could do!" And we've got to be able to hear the whole range of what he did, because it's just astonishing. Absolutely astonishing. Oh, that's nice. Thank God they stopped. The diesel fumes from whatever that dryer device is are rising up through the floorboard. So if I pass out or drop dead, that's what it is. And Anyway, it's Rossini. It's La Gazza, Ladra. It's just one of the great masterpieces, an indefinable masterpiece, just a tremendous piece of music by one of the great composers whose reputation still hasn't quite come into the fullness of time that it deserves. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.